Good evening, everybody, and thanks for joining the weekly AJA Zoom event, and welcome to any new people that we may have this week. We also have people watching on Facebook and some who listen to the audio replay, which is broadcast every Thursday at midday and Sundays at 4 p.m. on J-Air Community Radio. That's at FM 88 in Melbourne or at j-air.com.au everywhere else, so welcome to you all. My name is Alan Friedman, former VP of the AJA, and after a substantial overseas trip, it's nice to be back in the chair helping out this week as Public Affairs Director Robert Gregory is currently away. On your screens, you will have seen David Adler, President of the AJA, and our guest for tonight, Yisrael Aumann, or he's listed as Robert, but we'll call him Yisrael. Good evening to you. The format will be as usual. It'll be an interview style for about half an hour or so, and then we'll open up to questions from the audience. And as usual, if you want to ask a question, what we ask you to do is raise your hand electronically, and this can be done in the reaction icon down the bottom of the screen. You can put written questions on the chat group, but with Robert away, it may be a little difficult to get to them, but we will make an effort to keep an eye on them. Now, Professor Yisrael Aumann is an Israeli-American mathematician and a member of the United States National Academy of Sciences. He is a professor at the Center of the Study of Rationality at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem in Israel. And together with his colleague, Professor Thomas Schelling, he received the Nobel Memorial Prize in Economics Sciences in 2005 for his work on conflict and cooperation through game theory analysis. And yes, we will ask him what all that means. He is a member of Professors for a Strong Israel. He opposed the disengagement from Gaza in 2005 and has drawn on a case in game theory called Blackmailer Paradox to argue that giving land to the Arabs is strategically foolish based on mathematical theory. It sort of sounds very good, I think, but to unravel this word salad and help us understand what he is talking about, we're delighted to have you with us tonight. Professor Yisrael Aumann, welcome to Australia via the AJA, and thank you for your time.
I'm glad to be here. Let me just say a word about this Yisrael Robert business, okay? Now, the name that I got at the Brit when I was circumcised, yes, and that's my real name, is Yisrael, okay? Yeah. That is Yisrael. But this was in Germany back in 1930, and I had to have a loisir, a German name also. So they decided on Robert, yes, for whatever reason. Yes, I think my mother had beloved teacher by the name of Robert. So they decided on Robert, and that is how it was written. That's was written in my German passport. And then when I came to the United States, they said, "Oh, what's your name?" So they looked in the passport, it said Robert, so they gave me the name Robert in America. And on my American passport was written Robert, okay? And then when I came to Israel, they said, young man, that's a long time ago, it's 1956. They said, young man, what's your name? So I said, my name is Yisrael. Here in Israel, it's Yisrael. So they said, but let me see your passport. Okay. So I showed them my passport, and on the passport was written Robert. Okay. They said, well, here's written Robert. I said, yeah, but that's not my real name. My real name is Yisrael. So they said, well, if you want to change your name, you have to go to court and ask them for a name change. So I said, okay, we'll do that tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow hasn't come yet because I've been too busy ever since then.
Okay.
So my name is still Robert on the passport, but my real name The real name is Yisrael.
Okay, we'll call you Yisrael. Okay, let's start. Can we start by asking you what is game theory, and how can it be applied to political situations?
Well, game theory is it's the study of people or entities, okay, that are interacting with each other, and they are striving to different goals. Okay, now the best example of that kind of situation is a game. Okay, and that's why it's called game theory, like chess. Okay, so two people are playing chess, they're interacting with each other, and they are striving to different goals. In fact, the goals in chess are not only different, they're in fact opposite, okay? So if black wins, then white loses, and if white wins, then black loses, or you could have a tie, but it's exactly in opposite directions, okay? Opposite directions. Okay, and that kind of situation is called a zero-sum game, because whatever one loses, the other one gains. So the payoffs to the two players are summed to zero. So it's called a zero-sum game.
Yes.
But most games are not zero-sum games. Most important games, most games that are not games that people play with each other in the drawing room, yes, but are out there and are of importance, are not zero-sum. They're not opposite, and people are not striving to opposite goals. They're striving to different goals. Okay, for example, let's say you're buying something, okay, like a house, okay. You want to buy something, and the seller, and you have a certain house in mind, and the seller wants to sell it, and the buyer wants to buy it. So so it seems that they're not striving to different goals; they're striving to the same goal, namely that the purchase should be consummated. But if you look more closely, it's not the fact, because the seller wants a higher price and the buyer wants to pay less. The seller wants to get more and the buyer wants to pay less. So it's not exact. They are striving to different goals. Nevertheless, these goals are not opposite, because both sides want the purchase to take place. The buyer wants to sell and the seller wants to buy. No, wait a minute, I said that wrong. The seller wants to sell and the buyer wants to buy.
Yeah.
So that is a game, and there are all kinds of games also with more than two players. Okay, in fact. Take a look at Australia, and it has, what's the population of Australia? What is it, like 100 million?
No, 26 million.
26 million people out there. So what you have over there is a 26 million player game. They are all, everybody is striving to his own benefit, he wants to have more money, more food, a nicer house. Yes, he wants to avoid poverty. He wants to get along in the world. Everybody wants his own benefit. So, and they are interacting with each other. These 26 million people, or let's say 10 million households, okay, or 5 million households, are interacting with each other. And each one is seeking his own benefit, but they are not. The goals are not opposite; they're different. Okay, I want my benefit, you want your benefit, and so game theory is a very important element in the study of economics. Okay, because many of the the fundamental ideas in economics are based on game theoretic ideas. Okay,
so
and
yes.
it's not only in economics, it's also politics, it's also international relations. Wherever you have different entities that are interacting with each other and striving to different goals, you have a game.
And by definition, does that mean that all of these different interacting entities are antagonistic to each other?
No, not at all.
Not necessarily?
No, not at all. Not at all. You know, just like let's say that the 5 million households or 10 million households in Australia, they're not all antagonistic to each other. Dr. Adler and Mr. Friedman, well, you're different. You're Dr. Adler, wants to have a nice steak for dinner. And Mr. Friedman also wants one, but they're not antagonistic to each other, okay? It's only that Dr. Adler may want Mr. Friedman to have a nice steak, but he even wants more that he should have a nice steak himself. Okay, so they're not at all antagonistic. On the contrary. On the contrary, this prize that you were talking about that I got a few years ago talks about conflict and cooperation, and the emphasis there is on the cooperation, because I think the reason they gave me this prize is because I succeeded in proving something that leads to cooperation, a device that leads to cooperation between the partners, between the players in a game. They're striving to different goals, but they cooperate, okay, so that each one can get his goal.
Okay. Now, with your Nobel Prize, can you just explain in layman's terms what you won the Nobel Prize for, and how was your work helpful in the Cold War?
Okay, very good. I got the prize for several things I did in game theory, but I think I will talk about what the Nobel Committee, thought was the most important one. They gave that the most prominence in the explanations. Yes, they mentioned several different topics, but the most prominent one was the one of repeated games. Now that is that works as follows. What I showed was that people who are in a repeated interaction, they interact every day or every week or every month, yes, and they are more likely to cooperate than people who are in a one-time interaction. Let me give you an example of that. If a peddler comes to your door and offers you whatever peddlers offer, yes, then you might feel sorry for him and buy something from him, but you're not going to pay. You're not going to buy a very big item because you don't necessarily, you don't know the quality of that item, yes. And if you say to him, you know what, I want this item, but I don't have money at the moment, come back next week, give me the item now and come back next week, then he's not going to trust you either, okay? So you are unlikely to trust him, and he is unlikely to trust you. But if we're talking about your neighborhood grocery store or your neighborhood store altogether for any item, yes, then that's a totally different story, because you go to the grocery store and you say, Itzik, that's the name of my grocer, yes, I don't have any money with me, give me a couple of bottles of milk. He says, sure, Mr. Aumann, we'll write it down and you can pay us whenever you have the money. Okay, no problem. And I wouldn't buy a bottle of milk from a peddler because I would be afraid that it's spoiled. But from Itzik, he's not going to sell me a bottle of spoiled milk. So I buy a bottle of milk and I don't open it and I don't try it. Okay. Now, repetition leads to cooperation. Now, you may say that is that's it's trivial, okay? It's obvious because we know I know I get to know him over the years, and I like him and he likes me, and we become good friends, so we trust each other. But that's not the reason, yes. That's not the reason. The reason is a purely strategic reason. Okay, we're talking about game theory. The reason is that Itzik knows that if he sells me a bottle of spoiled milk, then I'm not going to get back. I'm not going to go back to him. Okay, I'm less likely to go back to him. Maybe I'll give him another chance in a few weeks, but right now I'll go to a different grocery store. And he knows that if I don't pay him, okay, what I owe him, then he's not going to give me credit again. Okay.
Yeah.
So that is the strategic reason. It's true that we like each other and we're friendly, but the basic strategic reason is that in a repeated situation, if the two sides decide to cooperate and then one side does not fulfill its obligations, then the cooperation will be to the bad consequences. The cooperation will not be maintained in the future.
Yes. I think
that is the strategic basic understanding of why repetition leads to cooperative.
Okay. I'll call David in because I think we're going to want to hear how this applies to the Israel situation. So, David.
Exactly. Yisrael, in the introduction, the term Blackmailer Paradox was used. It's a term you've applied. What is it, and how is it relevant to Israel?
Okay. The Blackmailer Paradox works like this. Let me just recall. Okay, suppose there are two people, okay, Alice and Bob, let's say, okay, Alice and Bob. Now, somebody gives them 10,000 Australian dollars to split between them, okay? And the only condition is that they have to agree how to split the $10,000, who gets how much, okay? They have to agree to this. So, Alice or Bob says to Alice, "Okay, wonderful. Yes, we have this is a windfall for us. We'll split evenly, okay?" The Bob says to Alice, "You get 5,000, I get 5,000." And now Alice says, "Well, I don't buy that, okay? I'm not leaving this room with less than 9,000 Australian dollars, okay? I want 9,000. So Bob said, hey, that's crazy. Why should you get 9,000 out of 10,000? Okay, well, you know, what's the difference between us? Yes, why should you get more than me? So Alice says, well, you know, I don't have a reason, okay? I can't explain it, but that is a fact. I'm not going to leave this room with less than 9,000 Australian dollars, okay? And that's it, take it or leave it, yes? If you want to leave it, yeah, well, you leave, okay, go out of the room and get nothing, okay? So Bob thinks this over and says, well, you know, 1,000 Australian dollars is money, okay? And I don't have a choice. Alice is giving me an ultimatum. In fact, she's blackmailing me, okay? I have to. I have to. $1,000 if I don't want to go home to my wife with nothing, yes, out of this windfall. So $1,000 is still something. And so he very reluctantly agrees. And that's the end of the story. Okay, that is the blackmailer's paradox.
Right, so
the paradox here, let me explain. The paradox here is that by being unreasonable, okay, being unreasonable, or let's put it the other way around. By being reasonable people get the short end of the stick. All right.
Are you arguing that
being reasonable gives you the short end? That is the lesson that can be learned from. I mean, not all situations are the blackmailer's paradox, but this is the the blackmailer's paradox. Now you asked,
how does it apply to Israel?
How that applies to the Israeli situation? Okay,
Israel's Bob.
Excuse me.
Israel is Bob.
In your example, Bob.
Yeah. Israel is Bob. That's right. Yeah. Israel is Bob. Okay, so the other side says, you know what? Jews are devils with tails. Okay, and we're not gonna. We want all the Jews in the sea. We want them in the Mediterranean Sea. That's where we like to see them. Okay. And that's it, and we'll settle for nothing less. Maybe we'll settle for a little less. Okay, we'll settle for a binational state where Jewish immigration is forbidden, but Arabs can come in whenever they want. Okay, and that's it, and okay, maybe. In the meantime, we don't settle. There's nothing to talk to, and the problem is that the problem is that we don't have. We're willing to settle for less and less. We're willing to cooperate. We're willing to extend the current situation as long as necessary. Yes, we don't have any specific goal. We don't have anything that is actually holy to us, that we are not willing to. We don't have any red lines. No actual red lines we don't have. So that's the problem. Okay.
So what is
we have to, in other words, if Bob would say, look, I cannot accept less than $5,000 because my religion forbids me to accept less than 5,000. If they, then maybe Alice would listen, okay? But if he gives no good reason, yes, if he does not have any ideology that leads him to insist on $5,000, if he's not serious about it himself, that's the problem. He has to be serious about it himself. Otherwise, he won't get the 5,000. Okay, if he's wishy-washy, if he says, "I'll get $1,000 is still money," okay, and okay, it's too bad that I can't get more, but no, but if he says no, 5,000 is holy to me. I need to get 5,000. It is and I won't settle for less than 5,000. If he says that to Alice, yes, and then you can go home because I have a good reason for not settling for less than 5,000. Then there's a chance that she will. And probably she will capitulate. But we don't have any red lines. We don't have anything where it says we must have this and that. Okay, nothing like that. And that's the problem.
Yisrael, I want to ask you a bit about Israeli academia, and you're part of a group, Professors for a Strong Israel. But most of what we hear coming out of some of Israel's universities is the opposite. We see a lot of left-wing academic activism. So can you tell us, what is this Professors for a Strong Israel, and why are there so many left-wing academic activists in Israel?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I'll answer the second question first, okay? Unlike what it says in the Ethics of the Fathers, Pirkei Avot, where it says that you should answer the first question first and the second. But I'm going to violate that rule, and I'm going to answer the second question first. Why are there so many left-wing academics in Israel? First of all, it sounds like more than it is. That is number one. There's several answers to that question. It sounds like more than there is because the most of the left-wing activists are in the non-exact sciences. For example, in law, in humanities, in history, in international relations, in all those things that are not exact sciences, all right? And these people are they're very outspoken, okay? And they know how to speak, okay? They know how to speak and they know how to write. People in the exact sciences do know, the mathematicians know how to write mathematics, yes, but they don't know how to write about Israel Arab conflict, okay? They don't know how, general writing is not in their, or general speaking even, is not in their purview. So there, the far left leaning of Israeli academia is more, it looks like more than it is. However, even in the exact sciences, it's true that most of academia is on the left. There's no question about it. Okay, in humanities and the social sciences, it's maybe 95% of academia. 95, 96%. In the exact sciences, it's only 80%, okay? But it sounds like more than it is. That is point number one. Point number two is that all over the world, academia leans to the left. That's all over the world. It's in the United States. It's probably in Australia also. I don't know. But all over the world, academia leans to the left and always has. I don't know what the reason for that is, but I can conjecture. Okay, the reason is that academia is to a large extent an ivory tower. Okay, the people in academia, they don't, they for their to make a living, they don't have to get their hands dirty. Okay, it's an ivory tower. They think abstractly, and the facts on the ground make people tend to the right. Okay, but the theories apparently. In theories, it's less. The tendency to the right is less convincing. So that is reason number two. Reason number three is that the left-leaning tendencies of academia preceded the creation of the state. In the late 20s of the last century, okay, so almost 100 years ago, and in the 30s of the last century, the heads of the universities, the Hebrew University, what there was at the time, the Hebrew University was a man called Magnus, Judah Magnus. And he was and he founded an organization called Brit Shalom, the Covenant of Peace. And these people were like peace now, okay? Like peace now that we are experiencing, or that we experienced in the late 19th century, in the late 20th century. The Covenant of Peace was against the formation of a Jewish state. They opposed the formation of a Jewish state. And I'm not joking, yes, that they were against it. They wanted a state of all its citizens. They wanted a joint Arab-Jewish state. They were against the Jewish state. Now, people came to Ben-Gurion and they said to Ben-Gurion, look, you have this Brit Shalom people, and they are agitating against you. What are you going to do about it? So Ben-Gurion said, I'm not going to do anything about it. They're insignificant. I'm going to build a state and let them shout what they want. Okay, that was Ben-Gurion's reply. Now, that was a big mistake. Okay, a big mistake, because those people were in charge of the universities at the time, and they inculcated their students with these views, which are post-Zionist, yeah, basically post-Zionist views. And this has formed the backbone of academia to this day. And Ben-Gurion did go ahead and he built a state, but that state is now, I think, threatened by the post-Zionist views that we find in much of academia. So that is the third reason, okay? Now, I've forgotten that's the answer to the second question. Okay, what was the first question?
The first question, I've got two final questions and then we'll open it. What is Professors for a Strong Israel?
Well, Professors for a Strong Israel is a Zionist, not post-Zionist, a Zionist group of professors. It's a minority. It has a lot of professors from from the exact sciences, yes, but it has some professors from the social sciences also, and it's a Zionist group that wants that is on the right. Okay.
Okay. So you opposed the withdrawal of Gaza, and have argued that giving land away is a foolish thing according to game theory. Can you just comment on that? Why is giving land for peace a foolish model?
Yeah, because it doesn't give you land for peace. Okay, you said it yourself. Okay, you said it yourself. It gives you land for war. Okay, it gives you land for war. Okay, now let me. There have been before the disengagement, as it's called, and I call it the expulsion of the Jews. Okay, now the Jews have been expelled from many countries, okay, throughout the centuries. There have been lots of expulsions from Britain, from Spain, all over, yes, Russia, yes, large areas of Russia, the Jews were expelled. Okay, but the expulsion of the Jews from the Gaza Strip was the first time that Jews were expelled by Jews. Okay, it's usually Jews are expelled by Goyim. Okay, but not by other Jews. Okay, and so that's a historic first. And if it would have been land for peace, that would have been fine. But it isn't land for peace. It's land for war. Okay. Now, there were a few incidents before 2005 involving terrorist activities in Gaza, okay? But that has become much, much, much greater, okay? The violence in Gaza has become much, much greater since the expulsion of the Jews, or what is euphemistically called the disengagement. And there's a good reason for that, okay? There's a good reason for that. And let me tell you what the reason is. The most important single idea in game theory is that of providing incentives to the other side to do what you want them to do. Incentives, okay? Incentives are very important. Now, that's I can give a whole lecture on that, but there's no time for that here. So let me get right to the point, okay? I was with a grandson in Switzerland. I go with my grandchildren every year to abroad for a few weeks to be one-on-one with the grandchild, okay, when they're about 15 years old. So I was with this grandchild in Switzerland, and there was a jet plane screaming overhead. And I asked, and my grandson asked me, Grandpa, what is that jet plane doing here? So I said, that is a jet plane of the Swiss Air Force. So my grandson said, why do the Swiss people need jet planes? They have been at peace for 400 years. It is the longest period of peace of any country in the world in history. Okay, so they don't need jet planes. Why do they waste money on jet planes? Yeah. So I said to my grandson, Nave, that's his name, you know why they have been at peace for 400 years? So Nave said, no, why? He said, because of that jet plane. Yes, because of that jet plane. They are highly fortified. They are They have caves in the mountains. Not only jet planes, they've had caves in the mountains for hundreds of years, yes, full of munitions, okay? You don't want to fool with the Swiss people. Even Hitler didn't want to fool with them. Yes, okay. You don't want to do that. And that's why they have peace, okay? That is why they have peace. Now, if you retreat, yes, you are giving an incentive for war, okay? And that is also, you know, you were asking, you mentioned the Cold War before, the Cold War between the Soviet Union and the United States, okay? Now, that Cold War never became hot. A Cold War is not a war, okay? A war is a hot war, okay? And a Cold War is peace. What kept that peace? It was the existence of nuclear weapons on both sides, okay? You don't want to fool with somebody who has nuclear weapons, all right? Just like you don't want to fool with the Swiss people, okay? So I want to leave some time for questions.
Yeah, no, we've got a couple of.
I could go on.
That's great.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Yisrael. Now, if you're listening on JAIR, this is the Australian Jewish Association Zoom event, which we have every Wednesday night. Our guest tonight is Professor Yisrael Aumann. He's a Nobel Prize-winning mathematician who applied his game theories to solving conflicts. I'll just hand over now to David to tell us what's happening next week, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Okay. Well, firstly, as we do every week, at the end of this event, if you're not doing anything tangible to support AJA, please do so. Go to the website, jewishassociation.org.au, where you can apply for membership, you can subscribe to the email list, and of course, you can make a donation. Also, make sure you're following the Facebook page for news and views on a daily basis. Now, next week, on a sort of related matter, we have an expert looking at the subject of understanding the Arab psyche. Yoni Ben Menachem is from the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs, and he's former CEO and chief editor of the Israel Broadcasting Authority. So he's had a lot of high-level engagement with government and with current affairs, and we'll be looking at the Arab perspective a bit next week.
Okay, thanks, David. All right, time for your questions. I've got Ron, Jeff and Anne lined up, so if you want to ask a question, now is the time to put your hand up. We'll start with you, Ron, so please unmute yourself and ask your question. You're still muted. That's it.
We are.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for your interesting explanation about game theory. I would like to know if you have also discussed game theory and the things that you've described this evening with fellow Nobel laureates in Israel like Daniel Shechtman, who of course has very different views to the conflict that you do. And also if you've ever been used as a consultant in Israel-Arab peace talks.
Well, with Danny Shechtman, I know very well. I haven't discussed this game theory at any length with him, but we're both members of the Israel Academy of Sciences, and quite often we're on the same side of an issue. Okay, so, but I have not discussed game theory with him, no. And what was the other name you mentioned?
No, have you been asked to consult with any of the government agencies? I think that's what you said, Ron.
Yes, I've been asked to consult, and I did consult, but not very often, not very often. And the one occasion that I remember that I was asked on an occasion that I was asked to consult, I gave a very definite opinion. And for a while, it looked like they were listening to me, but then they didn't listen to me.
Okay.
I think it was a big mistake. They made a big mistake, and it's okay.
Yes.
And they did something. They did something which was foolish. Okay.
Okay. All right. Let's move on.
And
Jeff.
it had very bad consequences. Okay.
Yes. Let's move on. Jeff, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Shalom, Professor. I just do not see how it is possible to contemplate that game theory is analogous in any way to the Arab-Israel conflict. The Arabs are acting irrationally, and game theory implies a certain level of rationality. They're acting irrationally for the simple reason that they think that terror will eventually work. And Israel is acting irrationally in appeasing them in so many different ways. So what price game theory? How on earth can you suggest, or anybody suggest, that game theory is in any remote way analogous to the situation of the Arab-Israel horror?
Okay, yep.
I'm not sure that you're right. I'm not sure that you're right that the Arabs are acting irrationally. They are acting to further their goals in view of what's happening.
Professor, it doesn't work.
No, let him answer, Jeff. Jeff, let him answer. Continue, please, Yisrael.
Okay. I think they are acting to further their goals, and I think and they are demonstrating adherence to their goals, which, as in the discussion of the Blackmailer Paradox, their goals are their goals, and a rational person is one, or a rational player is a player who tries to further his goals, and they are acting in accordance with their goal. They don't care too much about their living conditions. They have an ideology. I think the first lesson from game theory is that you have to respect the other guy's ideology. Okay, you have to realize what it is. Now, I agree that we are acting somewhat irrationally by appeasing, as you say, and I think the situation is one which is a classical game theory situation, and but people don't listen to us. Okay, so I think appeasing is wrong. Game theory says that appeasing is wrong, but that doesn't mean that game theory is inapplicable. It just means that we are doing something suboptimal.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anne, your turn. Please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yisrael, thank you. Enjoying this. How do you convince someone that to cooperate is more important than being in a conflict?
Well, by cooperation, I just mean doing what both sides think, or all sides think, is beneficial to them. Okay, so I sort of by the definition of the word beneficial, you want to do what is beneficial to you. Okay, now so cooperation is better than conflict because both sides get to an outcome that is beneficial to them. Whereas with conflict, sometimes you could have a situation where it's more beneficial. If you want to go out on a limb, you're quite right. Yes, in other words, you might get more through conflict. You might get more through conflict than through cooperation. All right, but you're going out on a limb, and that is a value judgment. Okay, that is, it's true that we're saying it's better for both sides not that both sides not get the maximum possible, that each side should settle for something less than the maximum possible, so that and both sides can get a fairly good outcome. And game theory does not say you shouldn't go that way. Yes, I mean you might want to say, okay, let's go for broke. Yes, let's go and try to get the most possible, even though it will hurt the other side very much, rather than settling for somewhat less, and both sides get something fairly good. Okay, but that game theory doesn't make a decision on that. So if you think that conflict may be better in a given situation, that conflict may be more desirable than cooperation, we technicians there are not going to say that that's wrong.
Well, it seems to be working for the Arabs, doesn't it?
What is working?
Well, the conflict. By maintaining the conflict, they seem to be achieving what they're trying to do, which is the delegitimization of Israel on the world stage.
Yeah. I think.
So maybe.
I'm sorry to say that there's a lot to what you're saying. Yeah, okay, I agree.
So they clearly are not looking at this in the same way. I mean, they're not looking for cooperation, because it seems to me that that's the last thing they want to do. Their model, their business model, is being very successful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
I think I don't know whether it's very successful. I mean, I think we are still in a fairly strong position. I think that position is being eroded. I agree with you, and I think we should act differently. We should, in other words, I think it doesn't cost them anything, because we don't. Their opposition does not cost them anything, because we don't move forward. Yes, we are still in a much stronger position, but that may change, with the erosion of the Israeli position in world opinion. And rising anti-Semitism, by the way, and probably it's in Australia also. It's all over the world, especially in the United States, but I think you probably have it in Australia also. And there's rising anti-Semitism combined with rising anti-Israelism, and Israel has been willing to settle, to not to move forward. Okay, we should be moving forward. We should be saying, okay, you want to make peace, let's make peace. If you don't want to make peace, then we will extend, we will build more settlements, we will extend Israeli sovereignty to parts of Area C, we will extend Israeli sovereignty to the Jordan Valley. And every moment that you don't come to terms is going to cost you. Okay, but we don't do that. So I think game theory actually applies very much. But so what we can do is advise the Israeli government, but
you can only
they can either they don't buy it,
no.
They don't buy it.
Can I just before we go to Joseph Yisrael, I want to ask you, one of the issues that bothers me, and I'm wondering if this is a red line or what you would call a red line, is the terminology that gets used around the world. So, for example, we often hear terms like occupation, settlements, West Bank, And I say that terminology is feeding into the Arab narrative, and I would rather that our side was stronger in objecting to those terms and trying to reduce their use. But the rest of the world seems to be going along quite nicely, and everybody accepts that the occupation is actually now a legitimate occupation. Would you call that a red line?
No, I don't call it a red line, but I think more important, whether it's red or blue, I think the use of the term occupation is in fact justified. Okay. Now, and we have for well over 50 years, okay? So the occupation began in 1967. So now we're going on, so it's like 55 years now, 56 years. Now, it is really an occupation, okay? Because it is a military occupation. We have not extended sovereignty to any of the areas, not the area C, and certainly not the areas A and B. I don't think we don't want to do that even. But so it is a military occupation, and let's call a spade a spade. We have settlements in Area C. Settlements are fine. I think they're good. But it's our fault that it's still an occupation, okay? We should say we belong there, and let's extend Israeli sovereignty. I said that before, and I think that the terminology of occupation is correct. I will tell you some, and I will. It's not a red line, but I think incorrect terminology is the word Palestinian when it refers only to Arabs. Okay. Now, my wife, I came to Israel in 1956, but my wife came to Israel in 1933. Okay. When the British mandate was still in force, and she got an identity card which said, Palestine, you're a Palestinian resident. Okay, you're a Palestinian resident. So there are Jewish Palestinians and there are Arab Palestinians, okay? The moment you say that a Palestinian is only an Arab, you're giving the game away, okay? Because you say those are the natives and we're the colonialists, okay? And that is giving, so that's an inappropriate terminology. Palestinian Arab, fine, but not Palestinian. I remember I don't remember, but the fact is that the Palestine Symphony Orchestra consists exclusively of Jews. Okay.
Yes.
And on the mandate coins, on one side was written Palestine, and on the other side was written Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. Okay, so Palestine is the land of Israel. Okay, and so that's inappropriate terminology, and that's very important. But I think something that's I think the word occupation is correct. And I'm in favor of calling a spade, and I think we should end the occupation.
Yes.
How should we end the occupation? By extending sovereignty to the areas under my control. I don't think we should expel the Arabs from the territories. They have area A and B, but we should extend. We should extend sovereignty to Area C, and we should limit the building, the Arab expansion in Area C. So, and I think I don't like the fact of the occupation, but it is a fact, okay? Now, another word which is definitely incorrect is the use of the word apartheid.
Yes.
Apartheid is apartheid to apply to the situation in Israel is absolutely false. I mean, there's nothing like it. Arabs can get onto any bus, and they do, yes, and they walk the streets freely and so on. So apartheid is absolutely. So I agree with you of the terminology, and I agree with you that our situation is getting worse and worse. Israel's situation, the Jewish situation in the world. I'm very much afraid for my children. I hope that as long as I live, this current situation will still be.
Yes. Thank you. Look, now, well, just very quickly, we're coming up to time, but Joseph, if you've got a very quick question, please unmute and ask. Joseph? Okay, maybe not. No. Okay. All right. I think we'll leave it there. Yisrael, I want to thank you very much for joining us today. You've provided some very interesting concepts for us to think about, and especially your game theory. It's not a concept that I've really had much to do with, but it's a fascinating one. So thank you for your comments, and all strength and power to you, and may you continue to go on for a long, long time. So thank you very much, Professor Yisrael Aumann.
My pleasure, and my best wishes to the Australian Jewish community. And we need you guys, okay? We need you to back us up. So thank you very much for your...
We back you.
We'll back you. Just now, is there any website or any way that people can follow what you're doing?
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
Personally, no, I don't think so. But I think if you Google Yisrael Aumann,
what about Professors for Strong Israel? Do they have a page or a website or?
Yeah, sure they have a page. I also have a page. Yeah.
Okay.
Professors for Strong Israel, sure they have a page.
Okay.
Yeah.
People can Google that and find out a little bit more. Okay, just before we go, I'll remind everybody that the L'chaim program with Morris Klein is on right now. That's a 3ZZZ or FM 92.3 in Melbourne, or everywhere else. It's 3ZZZ.com.au. That's all we have for tonight. Next week, Yoni Ben Menachem will help us understand the Arab psyche. But don't forget that you can keep up to date with what the AJA is talking about on our Facebook page. Please like it and share it widely. But for now, we wish you all a very good evening and look forward to seeing you again next week as usual. So from me, it's good night to you all. Bye-bye, Yisrael, and thank you again.